Hey Eagle fans, I'm Thomas Mott. Welcome into Philadelphia Eagles Now, and today we're going to give you 4 Eagle players who must step up on defense in order for the Eagles to go to their 4th straight playoff appearance. Before we start though, be sure to click that notification bell. That way you guys are notified whenever we drop the latest videos here on Philadelphia Eagles Now. Like 80% of you guys have not turned on the notification bell, and yet you are subscribed, which means you probably want to watch the videos, but you don't want to get notified whenever we drop them, because YouTube's weird. It won't technically send you a push notification saying, hey, new Philadelphia Eagles Now video, unless you have the notification bell clicked. So before we start, just quickly scroll down, click that, and then scroll back up, and let's go ahead and jump into the 4 players who must step up on defense for the Eagles. We start with, to me, the biggest one is Derek Barnett. Derek Barnett comes in here as a former first-round draft pick, touted as the guy who broke Reggie White's sack record at Tennessee. He's going to be a great Eagle pass rusher, and he's been good, and he's been great at times, but he hasn't been consistent enough to really warrant that number, or that first-round draft pick of the Eagles just a couple of years ago. He's in the final year of his contract. They can technically give him a 5th-year option, but basically, he's playing for his next deal, and so the hope is the money motivates him to get even better than where he was just a couple of years ago, and really just for the past couple of years. The Eagles' big problem on the defensive line is not the starters. They have very good starters on defense. We'll get more on that in a second. They have very poor depth, so there's basically no good pass rushers behind Derek Barnett. And so the hope is that he can play well enough to not really need to come out of the football game and have players rotate in there, as the Eagles like to do on their defensive line. He's going to get a lot of one-on-one opportunities, and he's got to make the most of them because, like we said, this is a make-or-break year for Derek Barnett. So what's interesting here is that Derek Barnett, by all means, last year had his best year as an Eagle. He played in 14 games, had a career high in sacks in 6.5. He had a career high tying his quarterback hit record there with 32, and a career high tackle for losses at 11. So that all sounds great. But you got to remember, 6.5 sacks is really not that great. It's a big reason why the Eagles were middle of the pack in terms of total sacks by their defensive line last year. 43 total sacks is not a bad number, but you're still sitting in the Titan, Bill, and Packer range there in the early 40s. That is 13th best. The Eagles, again, not a top 10 sack defense, despite having one of the better defensive lines in the entire National Football League. And the reason is, again, because the pass rushers didn't really get after the quarterback last year. Brandon Graham led all sack leaders for the Eagles with 8.5, and then Barnett sits there at 6.5. Right now, with the changes on the defensive line, with Malik Jackson being healthy and Javon Hargrave coming over from Pittsburgh, the hope is Barnett will have a lot of one-on-one chances to not only be a 6.5 sack guy this year, but a 10.5 sack guy this year. I think Barnett's got to be at least over 8.5. He's got to be at least over 8.5 sacks, or else the Eagles might look at him and go, hey, listen, you're not worth what you're going to cost us to re-sign in free agency, and so we're going to go ahead and let you walk. So my first player on my list of players who need to step up for the Eagles on defense will go ahead and be Derek Barnett. Now, Brandon Graham led the team in sacks last year. Who will lead the team in sacks this year? Type B down below for Barnett, type G down below for Graham, or type O down below for other if you think it could be Avery or Sweat or Hargrave or someone else there on the Eagles defensive line. Let me know who it is down below. All right, moving on. More players here on this list. The next one to me is an absolute no-brainer. It's Nathan Gerry. Nathan Gerry has got to ball out because the Eagles' linebacking core, to me, is one of the worst in the entire National Football League. And yet, many Eagle fans have told me, especially during the draft season, oh, Thomas, Nathan Gerry is going to be great. He was 3rd in the team in tackles. He's in the final year of his deal. He's going to play well. Nathan Gerry is not a great linebacker by any means. He's not even a good linebacker by any means. He's been decent at times, and he's been a good tackler at times, but inconsistency has been a major problem, and now as he's officially going to be a starter on the Eagles defensive line, or not Eagles defensive line, on the Eagles linebacker depth chart, he's got to step up and be a leader and be a good linebacker who consistently makes the plays that every linebacker needs to make on the Eagles linebacking front. So right now, the expected lineup for the Eagles linebacking core will be Nathan Gerry. The middle linebacker will be Jatavis Brown. And then the strong side linebacker should be Alex Singleton, which means that Nathan Gerry will be in on the majority of snaps. On a base defense, he's there for sure. On a nickel defense, it'll be Singleton who will come out for the nickel cornerback, which means that Nathan Gerry will continue to stay in there. The hope is, again, that Gerry is as good as everyone keeps telling me he's going to be, despite the fact that I see him more as a great special teams player and a below-average linebacker. This is a big year for Gerry to step up. If he plays well, much like Barnett, he's going to get a brand new contract and hopefully will be an Eagle for a very, very long time. Before we go on to our next player, and the next player you're really going to like, be sure to pick up one of the Eagle masks right now happening at chatsports.com/EaglesMask1. Right now, you get a single Eagles face mask, which you can go and pick up right now for your dad because Father's Day is just around the corner. It's this Sunday. If you order it right now, it ships and leaves the warehouse within 2 days and most likely can be there by Father's Day, if not the early part of next week. Gotta jump on this deal down? No. Our deal now, though, as quickly as possible, chatsports.com/EaglesMask1. Go ahead and pick up your single Eagles face mask right now for $14.99. Get something that dad will actually use because right now, as we know, the current climate, you'll be wearing a face mask probably for the foreseeable future and maybe even into the start of the football season. So grab one right now. Again, link is down below in the description box. Next player on my list, we move to the secondary and Jalen Mills. Now, you say Jalen Mills, Thomas. Jalen Mills has been pretty good for the Eagles. You can argue he's been the best Eagle cornerback Eagles have had, despite the fact he wasn't healthy for a majority of last year. He's been one of the better Eagle cornerbacks. The answer to that is sure, yes. But they re-signed him to a one-year deal to stay in Philadelphia, not to play cornerback, to play safety. Not to play any safety position, to fill the shoes of Malcolm Jenkins, who arguably is the second best safety in recent history, only behind Brian Dawkins. And yes, you can technically make the argument that Jenkins has been a little bit better because he's been a little bit more healthy. Malcolm Jenkins has played like 99%. It's not that high, but it's very close, of the snaps in terms of special teams, in terms of punt coverage, in terms of kickoff coverage, and safety. He's been a beast. Now, Brian Dawkins, again, is the best safety, in my opinion, in Eagles history, but Jenkins is right up there, and right now it's going to be Jalen Mills to probably fill his shoes, so he has got to step up and not only fill the shoes, but be able to lead as a defensive player, much like Malcolm Jenkins did during his career in Philadelphia. Now, look at the 2019 stats. It'll kind of reveal a little bit of interesting changes that Mills will have to make to his game. Remember, Mills only played in 9 games, but still had half as many tackles, had no sacks, had 1 interception, he had no forced fumbles. Like Malcolm Mills, the cornerback spot is very different from Mills at the safety spot, and not only does he have to be a leader, fill in the shoes, but has to make a lot more plays, and a lot of the plays that Malcolm Jenkins made. Is he up for it? I have absolutely no idea. Is he ready to be a leader? Is he ready to change positions? The hope is yes. And again, he's played safety a little bit at LSU and played it in 1 game in Philadelphia, so I think he's going to be ready. But this is a critical position, filling critical shoes that were a critical role to the Eagles winning the past couple of years, especially in the Super Bowl. Can he be ready to start in place of Malcolm Jenkins? That is the big question at safety for Philadelphia. Like this video, if you guys think that Malcolm Jenkins is ready to start at safety. I hope he is. So I'm going to like it because I hope he is. But if you think he's ready, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up right now. Final player on this list. I had to pick a cornerback, and I decided to pick Avonte Maddox because I've talked a lot about Avonte Maddox, and I expect him to be the cornerback starting opposite of Darius Slay. If that's the case, he's got to play well. Like, first off, he's competing for the job. He doesn't technically have the job yet. Rasul Douglas and Sidney Jones will also be competing, but he's my pick to start at cornerback. And with that being said, the Eagles have had a lot of holes and a lot of injuries at cornerback, and Maddox needs to be consistent and play very, very well in order for the Eagles defense to have a lot of success. So last year, he had 6 starts, 47 tackles, no picks, and 10 pass defenses, which was a fine year. But again, it was just an absolute roller coaster at the cornerback spot all year long for all of the Eagles corners. But I go back to the 2018 season, and that's where it gets me excited about Avonte Maddox. Now, you can say, Thomas, Maddox in his 2 playoff games was terrible. He had 21 targets, 13 catches, 264 yards, and gave up 1 touchdown. But I say that was against Michael Thomas and Allen Robinson. If you actually look at what Avonte Maddox did during the 2018 season, as a rookie, he played very, very well. So well that Pro Football Focus highlighted him as one of the big X factors for that Eagles defense in 2018, saying, quote, the former 4th rounder struggled from a grading perspective as a rookie last season, but did show a penchant for limiting receivers in his coverage. In fact, he led all cornerbacks by allowing a reception just once every 21.7 snaps he spent in coverage, and limiting opposing cornerbacks to a passer rating of just 59.9 when targeted. So, when you talk about Avonte Maddox, he's been very much like this. He's been bad in good games. He's been bad in big games. He's been good in big games. But overall, the consensus is the talent is there. He expects to start at cornerback. And if he does, if he steps up, the Eagles could have, for the first time in a very long time, a season where there's not a glaring hole in the secondary where it's like, oh, the corners are bad this year. The corners with Darius Slay and Maddox could be very, very good this year. And so my hope is that Maddox steps up and becomes the starter that the Eagles need opposite of Darius Slay there in the secondary. All right, who did I leave off my list? Like, is there anyone that I left off my list that you say, Thomas, this player needs us to step up? Not any of the players you said. Who did I leave off? Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I think I nailed it. I had 4 players to pick. Barnett obviously needs to step up, and I think he will because of who he's playing with. Nathan Gary, I mean, change my mind, please. Like, change my mind about Nathan Gary by Nathan Gary playing well. That's my hope for Nathan Gary there as well. Jalen Mills filling the shoes of Malcolm Jenkins. That one's obvious. Then Avonte Maddox being the starting cornerback opposite of Darius Slay, the cornerback that a lot of quarterbacks will pick on because they're not going to throw Slay's way the majority of the time when he is out there on the football field. There you go, though. All time we have for today here on Philadelphia Eagles Now. I am Thomas Mott signing off for the rest of your day.